All right, today we're going to place a distal limb bandage. So you can see I have my limb here, and we're going to pretend we have a little bit of a wound on the distal portion of the limb, and we need to bandage this up. So we have set aside all of our supplies that we're going to need, which includes white tape. You have a Telfla pad if you need one for a wound. We also have a tongue depressor that's going to help make our little stirrups. And then we have our cast padding. So this is just a cotton roll. You can see that it's kind of textured. This is what gives the bulk of padding to your bandage. And when we talk about things like a Robert Jones or modified Robert Jones, this is what we're using a ton of cast padding to really make that bulky bandage. And then our second layer, we have our stretch gauze. You can see this is just rolled gauze, but it's very stretchy. And we want to use this to help compress our bandage, but not too terribly much. And then we have our pretty layer, the third layer that we'll place, which is just our vet wrap. So we'll use this to help make the bandage look nice and also give an extra layer of security. So the first thing we're going to start with is placing what's called stirrups. And stirrups are very helpful to maintain the integrity of the bandage and prevent it from slipping down the leg. So the first thing we're going to take is just our white roll of tape, and we're going to do a nice decent strip, about yay long or so. And we want to, of course, tab our tape. That's one, set aside. We have a second one for the other lateral aspect of the limb. Usually we place them on the lateral aspects of the limb. If the wound is on either side, then we would place our stirrups cradiocaudal as needed. Okay, so we have our two sides. We're going to go ahead and place them on the limb here. So I'm going about halfway up the limb, and I'm leaving about half of my tape here. We can go ahead and take our tongue depressor and stick it to this piece of tape, so that when we apply the other tape, it doesn't get all sticky and a mess. Okay, so we place the other side of tape and then apply that to your stirrup as well. And for right now, that's all we're going to do for the stirrup. Okay, we'll come back to the stirrup here in a minute. Okay, so we'll pretend, again, that we have maybe a little wound just right here on the leg. So we'll just place that there. And I'm going to actually give myself a little tape to hold our wound bandage first layer on. Okay, so now we have our wound covered, we have our stirrups in place, and now we just need to actually bandage the leg. So we're going to start off with our roll of cast pad cotton. And as you can see, it's rolled. When you take the kind of tab, you want to roll that tab flat on the limb so that when you unroll it, it's nice and easy. It kind of just unrolls naturally. So we're going to start at the very distal aspect here. We're going to place our cotton just right on. And we're not applying really any pressure here. We're just letting it unroll. Okay, and your textbook says about half wraps in terms of width. When you're using thick cotton like this, it is a little bit more tricky. But as you place your cotton, you do want to make sure that there are no wrinkles, there's no ridges, that it's laying as flat as possible. And let me take this up so you can see some of the layers that I've started in the bandage. Okay, so we can go up maybe one or two more rotations and call it good. Now, when I am at the proximal part of my limb and I don't need to go up any higher, you can just rip your cotton and lie it flat. But I want to do a little bit more padding for this bandage. So I'm going to, just like I did at the beginning, you start at the very distal portion of the leg, always with every single layer. You start at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and apply just a little bit more cotton. So again, I'm coming in where I started before, at the distal aspect, And I'm just going to wrap that around like so, to give it just an extra little layer of pad. And if again we wanted to go even further, we can continue from where we left off, making sure again we start laying it out flat. And here I'm just starting where I kind of left off. Making sure there's no wrinkles and that the bandage material is lying as flat as possible. Okay, so we have nice layers here. A little piece of cotton's kind of ugly, but it's nice and flat for the most part. Okay. So now I've got my padding on my bandage, and that's great. It's going to give it the cushion and a little bit of stability. But we want to make sure that that cotton stays in place. So the next layer of bandage that we're going to use is our rolled gauze. And just like with the cast padding, it unrolls a certain way. So you want to start by laying it flat. You can see it just kind of unrolls naturally. Now with this is the layer that we will use a tiny bit of compression, and I'll explain as we wrap. When we start, again, at the distal portion of the limb, we will go ahead and make a rotation. And when we get to one side, and you can do this on either side, you want to kind of give just a little cinch, just a little pull. See how I'm kind of pulling a little bit? It gives, you want to just do one little cinch. And then I'm going to lay off the compression. I'm just free rolling. Again, about half. Okay, another cinch because I'm on this side. So I'm going to just snug it. Roll freely. And back to the side, snug it. Roll freely. Again, half rotations there. And back at the side, snug it. Roll freely. Back at the side, snug it, roll freely. Back at the side, snug it. Okay, you do want to have a tiny bit of compression, but we do not want, under any circumstance, for this bandage to be too tight. Okay, so I'm back at the side, last little one. I'm going to fold that wrinkle down and show you kind of what this looks like. So that cast padding is kind of compressed into a nice even layer with that rolled gauze. Okay, so the bandage really, this completes the bandage portion once we complete our stirrups, but we generally will add vet wrap to make it look nice, but also give an extra layer of security to our patient's bandage. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and place our stirrups. So we have completed our bandage, but before we do our pretty last layer of vet wrap, we want to go ahead and take the stirrups and place them up each lateral aspect of the limb. So we'll remove one side, and you take your tape and kind of twist it here so that the sticky part will run up the side of the bandage. Okay, so I'll take my other side, remove the depressor, twist the tape. So the sticky side is now going to touch the bandage. Okay, so those are nice stirrups that are again helping to kind of hold the bandage up on the limb. Stirrup there. And now we can place our vet wrap to make it look pretty. So just like every other layer, we're starting at the distal portion of the limb and working our way up. If we need to do another layer, we come back to the bottom and start by going up the limb. Okay. Now vet wrap also has quite a bit of bounciness to it. You can see that it's got a lot of like bouncy, it's kind of elasticy. What I like to do with vet wrap is when it comes on the roll like this, the bounce is kind of built in. I like to just go ahead and unroll my whole roll of vet wrap that I'm going to use. So I've got it pretty much unrolled. And I'm just going to roll it back up on the roll without any of that elasticity, okay? So it's going to be a lot looser when I place it, because sometimes what happens is we place the vet wrap too tight in our attempt to make the bandage look nice and kind of finish it up, that we can cause compression sores with our vet wrap as well. So I like to unravel it and roll it right back up, just kind of loosely. And then same as every other roll, we're going to start with the flat side down, okay, on our patient, and unroll it naturally, okay? So we'll start here again in the distal limb, just kind of roll it around. I do not cinch at all, no cinching with that wrap. That wrap is just a free roll. A little too free. You can see it, the layers a little bit better with that wrap and doing the half rotations or half widths on each of your rolls. Got to the end there, and I want to go ahead and work out the elasticity. And again, free roll. We don't apply any compression really with the vet wrap. The vet wrap is just there to make it look nice. Okay? And that is how you will do a distal limb bandage.